What's up, guys? This is Ronnie Evans, and you are listening to the Dynasty Hotseat.
Yes, hello everybody, and welcome back once again to the Dynasty Hot Seat, the only Dynasty show out there that is a certified inferno. Today, guys, I'm always so excited. We got a new guest. I love getting new people on the show. I've been down to talk to this guy for ages. We got Ronnie Evans on the show. You can catch him over on X at Ronnie A. Evans or at Good Guy AI, which we might chat about in a little bit. Ronnie, pleasure to meet you. How you doing? Welcome to the show.
Yeah, what up? Thank you for having me on the show. I really have been looking forward to this as well. I know Murph, I know a couple other people across the pond, and it's nice to build a proverbial bridge from here to there and talk Dynasty, talk football, and kind of spread the love globally. I'm excited to be here.
Spread the love globally. I like that. That's absolutely fantastic. Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on. If you've not already, you know what everyone on YouTube wants, right? I want you to hit the like button. I want you to hit subscribe. Hey, we got a target for 2024. I want to get all the way up to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. Guys, we're almost halfway there, and it's January. So thank you so much if you have subscribed already. And if you've not, hey, get involved. Ronnie, I'm excited to chat about this 2024 class and get into your mock draft. But a couple of things I want to talk about first. You're massively pushing and looking into how much AI can actually benefit research, benefit fantasy creators, benefit your average fantasy player, notwithstanding this class included, right? So what kind of advantages do you think AI has for the player coming up, and what do you see in it so much that you're really trying to push it?
It's a mixed bag. Some of it, honestly, is a little scary because of how excellent AI is at accomplishing its tasks. But I've moved past all of that because it is inevitable. It is coming. And it's actually really awesome. I've spent the last 13 months researching, playing around with different tools, exploring new options. And I think for the fantasy football consumer and the fantasy football analyst, it offers the ability for people to augment and accelerate their understanding of processes, to gather better information, and to frankly just accomplish things that they weren't going to be able to accomplish less than a year ago. You can speed up your research process for this show even. I had some notes on the rookies. I plugged them into an AI tool. I asked it to do its own research, and between the two, was able to formulate a couple blurbs that were a little more expansive than just my notes. And so it's awesome. There is not it's not true. I don't want to speak in absolutes. I'm not a Sith. But there are very few areas of the content creation process, the research process, the analytics process, everything that goes into creating fantasy football or any sort of content that AI can help accelerate and augment. And then behind that, I think the reason it's so important, and really I've put my foot down this year and I'm going to force it into a conversation within the industry, is what it represents to the clientele. And for you, if you're watching this show, definitely you still need to pay attention to all your best experts, keep up with mags and so forth. However, AI does represent what I like to call the great equalizer. And if somebody is willing to take the time, learn the tools, and figure out how to work with them, you can accomplish 95% of what the most sought after analyst in any field can do right now with it. And I think that's why it's very important. It's a little dangerous. It's going to be chaotic and hard to digest over the next decade as this becomes an integral part of everyone's life. But I think for us in this industry, it represents so much good. And I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, I'm at a very base level with it, Ronnie. I gotta be honest. I've used it a little bit just to kind of speed up my research process. So whenever I was pulling up just kind of this week in college football, who's been doing well kind of thing, like players who caught my eye, instead of going into ESPN, typing in the player's name, looking up the stats, I'd be like, what were Xavier Legette's stats against this team? And it'd be boom, and it'd just be right there.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the stage I'm at now. I'm excited to take the next step as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing what you're putting out there and yeah, kind of following in your footsteps a little bit with AI, because I'm right there with you. I think it's huge.
It's huge. I've been graced and I'm very fortunate to have some really, really prominent people, everyone from Hall of Famers to CEOs and site leads to people like you and myself who are on. We're not small fish, but we're certainly not Matthew Berry. And so kind of everyone in between, and the conversations are moving along. There is a great group chat that I started a couple days ago on X. I'll add you in, Mags, if you want to.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
You just shoot me a DM and I'll add you in, and it's got people from every major site, I think, at this point are in that chat, and it's growing and is a testament to, I think, how interested and how aware people are of how important this is, even if it takes you a little while to be comfortable absorbing it. And there's nothing wrong with that. It took me a couple months because it was a lot to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. You gotta adapt as time moves on. Just like the NFL does every single year, right?
Yeah.
Constantly changing, constantly adapting. We gotta do the same thing. And with this college class, I don't know about you, but I'm noticing like there's been a bit of a change, a bit of an adaptation from what we've seen with the NFL with the players coming out. Namely, it seems college football caring less about running backs as well now. Is that seeping into college football?
I think that's a really good question. I don't know that it is. I think that over the last 15 years, college has become almost entirely a spread system. And within those systems, it's not as important to have your prototypical big bruising running back in your traditional mold. But I think what you're seeing now is these athletes that typically would focus in on a particular role in college offenses. They are much more apt these days to take the guy and say, you're an elite athlete. We're going to plug you in at running back this game. We're going to use you as a wide receiver a little bit the next game. And there's, I think, for the scouting process, the validity and the mixed bag of touches that we're getting with a lot of these pure athletes that used to just strictly run the ball has made it more complicated. I hope I answered that okay. That was a good question. I'm not. I don't know.
It. Yeah, I love that. I love that answer. And did you notice anything else in general with this 2024 class? What really stands out to you?
I have last offseason, actually, everyone was really hyped up on the 2023 class all throughout the regular season. And over at Gridiron Ratings, just a soft plug from my friend Jeff, I've been working with him for the last 4 years. We were telling people in all of our off-season shows last year to sell your 2023 picks. The guys that hit are not going to be predictable. It's a mixed bag class, and invest in 2024. And what stands out to me is really just there are multiple generational type prospects at multiple positions. That in and of itself is pretty rare. But then you also you can make an argument, and we might do this a little bit later in the show, to have an entire rookie first round that's made up of a singular position. It's very, very deep. And ironically, you brought up running backs. They're like the worst part of the class. And so it's an interesting one. It's perfectly tailored for Dynasty because the best players are all in the positions that have longevity.
Yeah, this is going to be a really interesting class to see. I mean, we've seen people come in and hit right away as rookies as more of a trend lately. I think this could be another step forward because there's so much talent in here. I think a lot of rosters are going to be really happy with who they end up with. And Ronnie, before we march on into the mock draft, what college team do you follow yourself? How do you guys get on this year?
Man, the last 30 years have been tough. I'm a Tennessee Volunteers fan.
Go
Big Orange. I really actually, the last 2 years for me as a college football fan have been amazing because I've gotten to witness the dispersal of talent that's taken away from Alabama, and I've really enjoyed that. I haven't enjoyed as much how Georgia seems to have kind of just stepped into that role. But all things said, Tennessee, if you want me to just say 2 sentences on them, I still believe that Tennessee, and it's not biased, Josh Heupel's offense, the way that he sets his splits up and creates spacing is unlike any other coach in football right now. And his tempo is also pretty ridiculous. It's more than Chip Kelly ever ran. Yeah. Those two things in and of themselves do make Tennessee really, really fun to watch. And Nico Leava, That kid is ridiculous. I don't know if people watching were able to catch the Iowa game, but he went against, I don't know, people say arguably the second best defense in the country last year, and he torched them. His first true freshman start. He's all-around best player in the class last year. He's going to start the whole year at Tennessee next year, and Hendon Hooker probably would have gotten votes in the Heisman if he hadn't blown his knee out 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Nico's already, I think he's 5th right now in Vegas odds to win the Heisman as a first-time starter next year. And so there's a lot of fun brewing in Tennessee. It's just a fun team to watch right now, and I am very thankful because the previous 20 years or so sucked.
Yeah, I loved watching Tennessee this year. I mean, Joe Milton, say what you want about him, you can't take your eyes off him. Like he's an entertaining guy to watch. Whether he's good or not is another question, but he's certainly box office.
He's not. He's a poor man's version of Michael Penix.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a guy, we're not going to mention him later, so just very he's a guy I've been telling people in this show, you got to be careful because he's going to light up the combine. Absolutely set it on fire. So people really need to be careful with him because he's going to rise up a lot of boards because people can see he can run really fast and throw the ball really far, but it doesn't translate, right?
Yeah, all you really need to do to deter yourself from investing in Joe Milton and Dynasty, because you're absolutely on the money. I've been saying that exact same thing for 14 months now about Joe and particularly his arm. Yeah. I genuinely believe he has the strongest arm to enter the NFL in 15 or 20 years. And most people seem to agree with that. He can throw the ball 90 yards, and it's not a joke. But he can't really do anything else.
No, yeah.
And all you need to do is you go pull up a cut-up of Tennessee's offense from 2022. Look at the offense, just pick any game you want, and you'll see that Josh Heupel had to rein the offense in and basically run screens for 60% of our passes because he couldn't rely on Joe. And then the moment Nico comes in, all of a sudden we're throwing crossing routes. We're expanding the offense up again, and we're using the whole field.
Yeah.
Skip over Joe. I love the dude. He's an amazing human being, and by all accounts, an incredible professional in the locker room.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's got it for the NFL.
No. And last word on Tennessee before we get in, because I'm not even sure if this guy has declared or not, Ronnie. You might have to help me with this. But I was so impressed with Jalen Wright last year. I thought he was absolutely fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Here's the thing with Jalen Wright. He's almost impossible to scout. He did declare he's going to the NFL. He's going to be one of the faster running backs in the class. He has one of the best builds in the class. However, if you go watch his tape, it's hard to pull anything from it because Josh Heupel creates a system for running backs where you're dealing with 7 to 8 yards of space before you see your first defender. And Jalen Wright, most of his stats come on runs that, frankly, any running back in the country could make.
Yeah.
So I love him. I think that he's probably at best a late second round pick in the Dynasty community. He's going to need the right situation. He's going to need to be picked higher than I think he will in the NFL draft. But he's a good player. He reminds me a little bit of like a more well-rounded and much faster Alexander Madison, which I know is not the best comp, but or not the most confident building comp. But if you took Alexander Madison and made him a little bit better, he'd still be the starting running back. I think that's who Jalen Wright is.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what he can do for sure. All right, let's dive in then and let's talk about the rest of this class. So we're not going to go super flex because you kind of teased it earlier, Ronnie. You said we could almost fill a full first round with one specific position. Spoiler alert, it's the wide receivers. So we're going non-super flex so we can really hammer home how good this wide receiver class is. So starting out at pick number 1, no real shocks here. We're talking about wide receivers. Let's pick one of the best we've seen come out in a long time, right? You're going Marvin Harrison Jr. with number 1.
Absolutely. There's 2 guys in this class that I think are absolute foolproof prospects. One's a tight end and one is Marvin Harrison Jr. Yeah. He is obviously the son of Pro Football Hall of Famer Marvin Harrison, 6'4", I think 220 right around there. And there is just about nothing in his game that you can critique. Really, the only critiques I've heard actually come from box scores. People are like, look at him and compare him to other guys. And I've heard some prominent people mention, well, Marvin, he never really like put up an alpha type receiving yardage season or this and that. I think it's a product of the offense. You can't watch the guy and walk away and say to yourself that he's not the best college wide receiver you've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
And he had gridiron ratings. He's the highest rated player in the class. He has the highest rating that any wide receiver has gotten since Calvin Johnson.
Wow.
And he's the truth. If I'm in Dynasty right now and I'm outside of the top 3 picks, it's okay. We'll talk about some of these other wide receivers. You can still get good talent. It's worth moving around and trying to pay up a little bit to get Marvin, though, for sure.
Yeah, I think so. And because Ronnie, I can see what's coming. There's going to be people out there trying to make some noise, trying to get some buzz, trying to be hipster, saying Marvin Harrison's my wide receiver too. Do not listen to them. They're just putting stuff out for content's sake, for people to click on it. Marvin Harrison is wide receiver 1 with a bullet, right? Even though the rest of this class is so good, which shows you just how special Marvin Harrison Jr. is. And he's one of those guys, I don't care what team he goes on. I'm not worried. I think he's good enough to succeed anywhere.
He's got the upbringing, the life of coaching from an NFL talent. He went to the best place for wide receivers in the country, got a couple years of coaching there. That's proven on the field. If it doesn't end up being one of the top 8 receivers in the NFL by the end of his second year, I will be absolutely floored.
Yeah, I will be completely shocked as well. So yeah, Marvin Harrison Jr., number 1 here in our mock draft. Moving on to number 2. Again, this is fairly consensus, I would say, certainly for me. Number 2, you're going Malik Nabers out of LSU. What do you like about Malik Nabers?
The thing about Malik Nabers is that he's 98% of Marvin Harrison. And if you took Marvin Harrison out of this class, you would still be looking at a wide receiver in Malik Nabers. The profile is better than any wide receiver we've had coming to the league over the last couple of years. Malik Nabers has a higher grade from us at Gridiron Ratings than JSN, than Drake London did. He's probably the best wide receiver from the last few years to come into the NFL besides Marvin Harrison. And I know we're discounting Puka, but Puka's not part of the conversation. He's an anomaly, and everyone missed him in the draft process. So whatever.
Yeah, exactly. No one had him rated that high. There's nobody out there saying, "Oh, see, I had Puka at wide receiver 1 all along." No, you didn't. That's a lie. You've been using that AI to to go back in time.
Right,
yeah,
right.
Maybe some AI out there had Puka up high. That's the rumor on the street, right, about the Rams, right? They've got this kind of real crafty AI watching everything, and that's how they managed to get Puka. I just think Sean McVay might just be a genius as well.
I think they're better at scouting than everyone else is for the particularly offensive skill positions, but it's not a rumor. I'm actually aware of, I think, 6 or 7 NFL teams that have been employing AI for the last 24 months and a lot of their strategies.
That's cool. If we could get the Chiefs to AI someone who could actually catch passes, that would be awesome.
No, Andy's ready for all that. He's like, give me a burger. I don't need the robot.
Yeah, absolutely. So Malik Nabers locked in. Super stud prospect you can get in your drafts, not even at the number 1 pick, which is awesome. At number 3, we're going a guy. I've been so impressed with this guy, Ronnie, especially the changes he's made to his game and his body even over the last couple of years. Odunze, wide receiver out of Washington, coming off an absolutely awesome season with Michael Penix Jr. Talk to me about Odunze. What got in the 3 spot for you?
Well, this isn't why he's in the 3 spot for me, but to lend credence to his profile, Daniel Jeremiah actually has him ranked as his number 1 wide receiver in this class over Marvin Harrison. I think that's stupid, but he's really good. He's reading off my notes here, 81 catches for 1,400 yards and 13 touchdowns. He's 6'3". He's an athletic freak.
Yeah.
He's not quite a DK Metcalf level specimen, but he's in that range. He's got the speed. He's got the body. He's got the frame. He can make the catches. And a lot of people I see that critique him talk about his inability to run routes, and it's really curious to me because he ran routes and he does them okay. He just wasn't asked to be a specific technician. So sure, might take a little bit for him to become that, but I don't know if he ever will. I mean, it's not really his game. He's out there to be an out athlete you, and it's really, really special. And I actually worry about Michael Penix a little bit because sometimes I wonder if Rome made him a little more relevant this year than he would have been otherwise.
Yeah, it's a bit of a strange knock on him, especially whenever you've got Jalen Polk and you've got Macmillan there as well. They're kind of there to maybe do more of that on that Washington team. And with Odunze, people asking, well, why isn't he running routes? He doesn't have to. Like, he didn't have to. They were just able to throw it up to him, and he got it every time. So why, like, keep it simple? Like, throw it to Rome, and he'll come down with it. And that's what happened.
Yeah, and you're not going to be able to do that in the NFL. It doesn't really matter unless you're Tyreek Hill. But then I think that's where the concerns with him come from. But I'm not worried about it. I think these three guys, Nabers, Odunze, and Harrison, slam dunk. Put them in your lineup. Amazing dynasty picks right there.
Absolutely love it. So moving on to pick number 4. I love you got this guy so high because I feel like I'm slightly higher than consensus in this guy, Ronnie. So I'm glad that we're seeing eye to eye on Troy Franklin out of Oregon.
Love him.
Love
him. He's got record-breaking speed, right? People talk about Odunze as like the athletic freak of this class. It might actually be Franklin. 6'3", 188. He's got good size. 81 catches last year. He hit that threshold. The 80 mark is important. 1,300 yards, 14 touchdowns. He's doing everything. He is elite, both vertically, but also deceptively agile. He can cut horizontally across the field as good as anyone in this class. He's projected as a first-round pick this year. He's going to have the draft capital. The only thing that I worry with him is the same thing I worry with every wide receiver. Like, want to make sure they go to a competent franchise with a competent passer. And if that happens for Franklin, he can very easily be the best wide receiver in this class outside of Harrison when it's all said and done. He's that good.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I love what you see. He's the kind of guy that you watch him play and you're like, wow, this guy's so good, so good. And then you look, it's like he's 6'3" as well. Like you don't really see it until like you look up the stats. You're like, wow, he just has every box ticked from me, Franklin. Yeah, you're right. The speed is incredible. But I also still think that if a team wanted him to come in and play in a slot kind of role, I think he's good enough to do that as well, right?
Absolutely. He could be a great big slot, especially in teams that I've drawn a blank on the concept, but there's a specific schematic concept that can work inside out on vertical threats. It's my favorite play in Madden, which is not what we're talking about, where you send the tight end for the slot up the middle.
Sluggo?
I think so, yes. But you plug him in as a big slot, he'd be fine, and he would absolutely freak out defenses.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on there. And moving from one guy who's going to freak out defenses to another. And again, speed kills too, right? With this guy, Xavier Worthy out of Texas.
Yeah. So Xavier Worthy is, I think, mislabeled as a solely speed guy. It's going to be his calling card in the NFL. It's certainly going to be the way he's used to open up defenses. And he doesn't have the size and profile that those other 4 guys have. He's 6'1", he's 170, he's a little undersized, and he's built like a burner. And that is what his elite trait is, but he can catch the ball. He's got incredible hands. He's also a very good route runner, and he is polished enough to do a lot more than just run verts, and he did that at Texas. So I don't know. I look at Xavier Worthy, and I look back at Quinn Ewers, and I'm like, okay, well, half the reason people love you so much is because of this Worthy kid.
Yeah. I think you're spot. What did you think about? I came away from watching Texas just being like, you guys have got so many good receiving options. I felt they underutilized them severely last year. I know Quinn Ewers went down, but you look at the numbers for Worthy or Adonai Mitchell or even Shatavion Sanders, and I'm thinking they should be way higher.
Yeah. Well, Sanders is low key. Maybe we could talk about him at the end of the show. He might be my favorite player in the draft, just because of not because he's the best player, but I love his profile.
Yeah.
I think so. I think that I don't know. It's hard to say. As a Tennessee fan, I have a distinct hatred for the University of Texas just because the whole UT thing. I want everyone to know the University of Tennessee was founded like 60 years before Texas was even a state. So we are the real UT. Jokes aside about Tennessee and Texas, that's a really good question. And I don't want to give a off-the-cuff answer. I'm not sure that I can give the right answer to it. I didn't study Texas enough this year to really have an informed opinion about that.
Fair. Yeah, we'll plug it into an AI later, Ronnie, and we'll get a real answer for that, right?
I could do that at the end of the show. I can ask ChatGPT and we can just read it off.
Yeah, let's do it. That sounds great. So yeah, we're going Xavier Worthy. Yeah, mislabeled as a speed guy. That is my worry about Worthy, that we're going to end up. It's just going to be like, you're the stretch the field guy. I think he's too good though. I think hopefully in training camp and everything else, people will see the talent that he has. Hopefully, so hopefully he can get through there. Xavier Worthy. Moving on. If I feel like this guy, pick number 6, if you read his measurables and read his size and weight and everything about it, he sounds a hell of a lot like your first pick, Marvin Harrison Jr., right? At 6,
Hmm.
you're going Brian Thomas Jr. out of LSU also.
Yeah, I think for me, right around 4, like Troy, and then all the way through the 7th or 8th guy on this list, it's going to just a landing spot and draft capital are going to determine a lot for me, because I view them all
Yeah.
similarly in terms of impact for Dynasty. They're different types of players, but Brian Thomas Jr., man, goodness gracious, 6'4", 200. He does everything. He runs the routes
Yep.
perfectly fine for a guy that big. He's an absolute monster in the red zone. He's going to get you if he goes to the right team and they utilize him the way that LSU did, he's going to get you a lot of that juicy, sought after touchdown points
Yep.
that are hard to come by in fantasy for the wide receiver position. He is incredibly proficient at tracking the ball. I think one of the most overused terms in football analysis is point of attack. He's so good at the
Yeah.
point of attack. Really, actually, though, in Brian Thomas's case,
Yeah.
I don't know. Besides Marvin, there might not be a player in this class that I won't want to go up for a 50-50 ball over Thomas. He's
Yeah.
ridiculous. And he's part of the reason why in a lot of dynasty drafts, for me, I am absolutely trading multiple future picks for a package that gives me a second round pick in this class that's early or a late first. I think you're going to get like guys like Brian. They're going to get pushed back by some of these other players. He's a slam dunk. His class is ridiculous, Mac.
It like a guy like Brian, the stats he put up, even like I think he led the nation in touchdown passes caught. He had so many so many
17.
unbelievably 17 touchdowns, along with an incredible amount of yards. I don't have it right off the hand, but he's not even the best wide receiver on his team this year.
I know.
Like, that is how good this class is. It is unbelievably strong. And you're right, that's so good for Dynasty because they are so, you're going to spend so much time on your team. So I love getting a guy like Brian Thomas Jr. in at number 6. He's kind of like Troy Franklin we talked earlier. He could end up being the number 2 receiver behind Marvin Harrison as well. All of these guys have got an absolute avenue, right?
I 100% agree. And that's, we talked about it a little bit earlier, but now that we're halfway through, I wanted to do a first round mock and basically hit wide receivers and throw in one dude at the end that wasn't a wide receiver, because we just went through 6 guys that I could see. Absolutely. The top 4 guys, I think, have an argument as a better prospect than JSN or Jordan Addison last year.
Mm-hmm.
Brian Thomas, if he was in last year's class and did what he did here, I think he would also probably jump over both of them.
Yeah.
These next 6 guys, I think, is where you start to get into an equal tier with those dudes from last year. But this class is special. It reminds me a lot of 2014's class. There's going to be 6 or 7 wide receivers that come out that are absolute staples and mainstays in Dynasty over the next half decade or longer.
I love it. You took the words right out of my mouth there, because I was about to ask you, Ronnie, do you think there's a bit of a tier break after this pick? So obviously we're right in sync here, Ronnie, because at 7, this is where the question marks start coming up. At 7, we're going Keon Coleman out of Florida State. I mean, athletic freak. If you haven't seen it, ladies and gentlemen, please look up the catch he made this year. One of the best you're ever. Just type Keon Coleman catch into YouTube. You'll see it right away. One of the best you're going to see. But huge question marks with him as well, right? For me, kind of disappeared towards the back end of the season.
Yep. He's a mixed bag. It was frustrating for me. I saw the same thing with him. I try not to do a lot of box score scouting, but I couldn't watch every college football game. Yeah. And I think the Jordan Travis injury might have played into that a little bit at the very end, but it wasn't just that. Before that, this happened. And heading into the season, I believe it was one of my friends over at 33rd Team put one of my other friends onto Keon Coleman back like in preseason. And then I looked into him and was blown away. Did his fit in Florida State. And for that first half of the season, he looked like he might have, if he had kept that up, probably top 4 in this class at wide receiver in terms of projections, and I think he could still get there. 6'4", 215. We just talked about Thomas. Keon's like a little bit even more of a physical specimen than Thomas. And you talked about the highlight catches. I don't think 1-to-1 Cortland Sutton is a perfect comparison for Keon Coleman, but they're similar enough, and particularly in the way that they are proficient in using their body. They're incredible at making the catches that most wide receivers can't, and they're big, huge, chain-moving targets that are willing to get in the trenches and block. I worry about Keon because I almost like him more as an NFL receiver than I do a fantasy receiver, but I think his upside his upside is a wide receiver 1 in fantasy. I just don't know if he's going to hit it.
Yeah, he's someone I would love to go to, like one of these wide receiver factories where we see no matter who comes out, like the Rams, right? I know they're probably a bit too heavy in there, right? Yeah, like Steelers would be awesome, right? Someone who come in, he's going to get polished up a little bit. They're going to round off the edges. They're going to use what he's good at. Like that would be a perfect landing spot for him. He's probably going to go second round, Ronnie, right? I don't think he can sneak into the first.
Yeah, in the note I have, he's projected as a late first round, early to mid second round pick. He's still good enough. He's going to be a top 60 pick. Yeah. So he's not a bad prospect at all.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're getting him at 7 as well, which is just so awesome with this class. And going from 6'4", 215 athletic freak to the opposite. He's still an athletic freak, maybe, but I love watching some Lad McConkey out of Georgia. Talk to me about Lad McConkey.
He's a good lad, man. He's a good lad.
Yeah.
He's McConkey is great. He threw, despite my unwillingness to try and find goodness in the Georgia games I watched as a Tennessee fan, I have to force myself through that bias. He stood out. Every time I watched Georgia, they weren't always living through the aerial attack, but he consistently proved himself to be a mainstay of that offense. This is a lazy comparison, but he does remind me a little bit of like a Julian Edelman type wide receiver. But I think he's going to show up into the NFL and produce fairly quickly. With his size, with his overall lack of like a prototypical profile, I think he's a guy that also people will miss. Also coming from a school that's not known for their wide receivers. I know that we've had Pickens recently and we had Ridley, but Kirby Smart and wide receivers aren't really the two things that you think of. Don't miss on Lad. I mean, he's a guy that might be sitting there in the middle of second rounds and rookie drafts next year, and I will pounce on him if he's.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to look up like maybe the best route runner in the whole class is Lad McConkey, and like we've talked about how good this class is. He is elite route runner. Almost sometimes the way he runs, he's got a little bit of Devonta Smith in him. I think the way he makes those cuts and turns, I can kind of see that.
I can see that,
Yeah, so I just really like the way he plays. And I think, Ronnie, we're over the point now of talking about he's too small. He's too small. We've seen year after year, people are succeeding with that, right?
For the last 3 or 4 years, roughly 20 to 30% of the top 15 wide receivers in fantasy have been 6 foot or less. So that stuff still matters, but I think it matters a lot more for an NFL team and their team composition than it does for correlating to fantasy production. And actually, Lad's number one skill, you hit it, is route running. Been making the argument for years now, and it's not just me. Being a proficient route runner that can get out of his break and get open is arguably the most important thing you can look for in a wide receiver.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're open, you're going to get the ball. Like as simple as that, right? Yeah, don't overcomplicate it. Just get open and throw him the ball. Like, and that's what Lad's going to do. No matter where he's another guy, I don't really mind where he goes. He's going to go somewhere. He's going to be able to get open. So yeah, I love Lad McConkey in it. After it, number 9, this guy's had a weird year, but super talented guy. Tez Walker. Do you want to tell the people? Listen, can you get into a little bit what happened to him this year? It was absolutely bizarre, right?
I can't even put a finger on it. I've thought about it a lot. Just super up and down, not always there in the end of the game stat box, which I know I've said it 5 times already. We should not be box score stouts, but the box score is how you get fantasy points. But I mean, look at the guy. He's 6'2", 200. He's got prototypical size, 58 catches for 920 yards and 11 touchdowns. I don't love that, but Kent State, not where he came from, like, not really known for a factory, and then it goes into North Carolina, and I think he did fine. He showed, for me, when I look at prospects, I care honestly a lot less about full body of work and more about what the individual cut-ups look like. If you can take a player and watch 10 minutes of them doing the same thing over and over and over again, like running an out route, that tells me a whole lot more than cumulative body of work throughout a college football season, because there's lots of factors these players can't control that go on around them on the team. And I think you see that a little bit with Walker. That said, he's a stud, and he was a part of why Drake May looked as good as he did. It's not that Drake May is bad. He's a stud too. He's ridiculous. Yeah. Walker helped for sure, but he's not a first round pick. I mean, this is, for me in Dynasty, I wouldn't pull the trigger on him in the first round unless the situation was perfect. But to make a point, I'm keeping him in the first round for this exercise.
Yeah, absolutely. He had that weird, was it Tez Walker who had that weird thing where it was something to do with the transfer protocol, and the NCAA were like, no, you're not allowed to play. And then they eventually turned around and said, oh no, we changed our mind, you can't play. But he missed the first 4 or 5 games of the season. I wish we got to see a full season of him and Drake May together. That would have been so much better for his overall tape and his stats. But I think that's just going to push him down drafts, which I kind of like, because then I might be able to get more of him.
Yeah, and he's probably not going to receive the draft capital that turns people onto him either. It wouldn't shock me if he's a 4th round or later pick. But I think he's a victim of circumstance. Every time I watched him play, when I saw him on the field, I walked away thinking, okay, that kid's got a future at the second level. And I think we're going to see that here over the next few years.
Yeah, absolutely. So moving on from Tez Walker onto a guy. This guy was looking like he was going to be a slam dunk first round pick the first 7-8 games of the season. Xavier Legette out of South Carolina. He kind of a bit like Keon Coleman faded towards the end, but he showed me loads in his first couple of games.
Yeah, I think the number one takeaway I have for him and anyone else tied to that offense is that they got figured out as the season progressed and fell apart. So I don't necessarily hold, again, his entire body of work against him. And he is, right now, he's at 10 for me. Dude, a good combine, which he very well might have. He's very similar to A.J. Brown. He's like the same fucking dude. Excuse my language.
You're right.
but yeah, he's a guy that I could so easily see someone like Brian Thomas going to an awful landing spot, Legette going to a spot where we wish Thomas went, and all of a sudden he swaps places for me in the ranking system. He's really good. Really good. Just body of work and inconsistencies throughout the season. And like you alluded to, his value amongst Dynasty draft nicks just over time throughout the season kept dropping.
Does slowly and surely, yeah. But yeah, he's still a real testament to how strong the class is. And this Knicks guy as well, I honestly can't believe we've got to pick 11 and we're still gushing over how talented. And we've only spoke about wide receivers. We got Adonai Mitchell, another wide receiver out of Texas, much against your eagerness probably to not talk about as many Texas players as you can. This guy is a monster, right? He's another one. It's just throw him the ball more. I couldn't get enough of him. But yeah, I thought he was underused, just like Xavier Worthy. But tell me about Adonai Mitchell.
You can take what I said about 5 or 6 of these other guys when it comes to profile from a physical standpoint and apply it to him. That's part of why I wanted to do this exercise. I mean, you have of the 12 to 15 legitimate prospects at wide receiver that are in this class, there's 6 or 7 of them that look like Marvin Harrison Jr.
They're
6'3", 6'4", 200 plus, big hands, great concentration when tracking the ball, decent route runners, red zone threats, the whole 9 yards. And Mitchell's literally the same thing. He's 11 for me, but again, landing spot is important. If he goes into the right situation and right role, you alluded to it earlier, and I don't have a problem with people saying Xavier Worthy and Mitchell should be flip-flopped for me in this draft by and of itself. He's got length. I'm just going to read off a couple notes. Super flexible. We talked about that. He can move around, track the ball really well. Great separation.
Yeah.
It's top 50 prospect in the NFL draft right now by most draft picks. And I don't know. I mean, I think he's going to end up being a round 2, round 3 pick just because there's so many other guys with more statistical proof and higher pedigree than him in terms of just going back through the recruiting cycle coming out of high school. But again, like, would I rather have a Donai Mitchell than Quentin Johnston? Not including what happened this year. Just draft profile wise, not even close. I'd much prefer Mitchell.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely agree, Quentin. Well, Mitchell can catch, so that's a good start.
Right?
Yeah, that's a real strong suit.
Trying to tell people before the season started last year that Quentin Johnston's basically a poor man's DJ Chark, and a lot of people didn't want to hear that. Definitely proved to be the case.
Oh, I was on a mock draft on the Fantasy Sanctuary, great show, shout out, and all of us were drafting. It was like 4 of us drafting, and QJ kept falling because everyone's like, nope. Like, nope, nope, none of us wanted to take. I think he eventually went at like 2.7 or something, like something way below where he was going. But I think everyone was in sync with QJ. But yeah, like, who knows? He's got another year. Who knows what he can do? So we've chatted about wide receivers. We had to sneak in one guy at 12. This is a guy who's going to catch as many passes as most of these guys. Let's be honest. Brock Bowers out of Georgia at tight end. He may be playing tight end. He's got just as good a hands as any of these wide receivers, right?
Everything you can say about Marvin Harrison Jr. in terms of his relation to wide receiver prospects over the last 20 years. Honest to goodness, man, Brock Bowers is that guy. He is, in my opinion, he's the best prospect since Vernon Davis. He's a better overall prospect than any other wide receiver I've seen come in for the last decade plus, or not wide receiver, tight ends. Even Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts and Brock Bowers are very different tight ends. Kyle Pitts is actually mostly a wide receiver. And the thing that worries me about Bowers with the general dynasty community is that we last year got spoiled with tight ends, particularly with Laporta. I was actually talking to Dynasty I'm over Twitter about this the other day. He made a post about just in general how good Bowers was, and I pointed out that he's really good. But if he doesn't go to the perfect situation with the perfect target vacuum with the perfect quarterback, he's probably not going to do as good as Laporta did last year. And people need to recognize that's okay. And he is not a bust if it doesn't happen for a year or two. That's actually traditionally what the game plan is for tight ends. Brock Bowers, for me, if I'm in a tight end premium league, he's my 3rd pick. I'm going Marvin Harrison, I'm going Nabers, and I'm taking Brock Bowers. And even non-tight end premium, I'm not letting him drop out of the 1st round. I don't care.
Yeah,
I'll move up and take him over half these wide receivers. He's ridiculous.
Yeah, he is just one of those special talents, and I feel like we're being spoiled with these special talents. Like at tight end, we had Kyle Pitts, but Kyle Pitts is still really good. He's just in the wrong situation, like you said. Like that could happen to Brock Bowers. So I think that is the cautionary tale for sure. But I think you want to take that gamble on him for sure because you don't want to be sitting there going, "Damn, I had the chance and I didn't take it because I thought, what if Kyle Pitts, right?"
Yeah, and I think just adding a little bit to that, one thing that's really curious about the tight end landscape right now is that our traditional mainstays are not the mainstays anymore. I think everyone is going to move Kelsey out of their top 6. The age has caught up to us. Performance this year, sure, too. Mark Andrews is probably still going to be up there, but he's getting older and he's been injured. Hawkinson's coming off a blown-up knee. Yeah. And Kittle is up there in age too, and he's playing on a team with 4 other viable targets. Despite that, there's 5 or 6 tight ends right now that I would be pretty freaking stoked to have as my cornerstone at the position in Dynasty. Yeah. And that's not including Brock Bowers yet. And perspective-wise for me, I think he comes into the NFL, and by the end of his rookie year, he's viewed as one of the 4 best tight ends in the NFL. He might not have the same receiving stat line as someone like a Laporta did or a Kyle Pitts in year 1, but part of that's going to be because Bowers is a better overall player than both of them. And if you're a coach, it's stupid. It just would be stupid not to use him as a blocker and to filter him into every single package you have. And it hurts a little bit for tight ends. Doesn't matter. He's ridiculous. Second best player in the class.
Yeah, he is a slam dunk prospect for sure. And Ronnie, I just absolutely love what you've done with this. For all the people that are going to be like, oh, I can't believe you didn't take this right. He's making a point, guys. We're not in here slam dunk. Because we're also probably, it is titled way too early, too. This is a way too early mock draft, right? There's so much that's going to change. We're making a point here. You can build a full first round with the talent that is here at wide receiver. But I can't let you go, Ronnie, without having a little word on the quarterbacks, because there's lots of there are three anyway, from what I could see, three really good prospects at quarterback as well, right?
Yes. Pull up this little note I have. I mean, it's not just three. I think there's 4 or 5. People are overlooking JJ McCarthy a lot. People are reading into the box score. You cannot go and watch his cut-ups and walk away and not think to yourself, wow, that kid's actually ridiculous.
I can't believe the power he generates on like his throws, the power he gets in his throws, incredible.
Dude, everyone's all jazzed up over our LSU quarterback, who I think's great. I think McCarthy's a better athlete. Best athlete in this class at quarterback. He's ridiculous. He reminds me of like a juiced up Russell Wilson. He's awesome. And the difference between him and Russ is I think JJ can actually see the middle of the field.
Yeah, and he's not a complete weirdo.
I went to K through 12 school with Russell Wilson. Actually played football with him for a short stint, and have followed him his whole way through. He is absolutely as weird as you think he is.
Yeah.
But JJ McCarthy, really good, unheralded. Yeah. Scoop him up in the second round of your dynasty drafts if he's sitting there and trade off some of your middling quarterback talent and hold on to him. He's probably gonna pan out and be good for fantasy. Yeah. Michael Penix, I think, he's the most fun to watch throw the ball of anyone in this class. The way the ball just like rockets. It's like he has a spring in his shoulder and he brings the ball up and that just shoots out. Like we said earlier, like Joe Milton, he's going to have the best arm in the class and probably the best of the last 10 or 15 years. Penix is up there. He's got a Josh Allen type arm, but injury concerns, so on and so forth, and certainly didn't show up the way we wanted him to in the championship. But he's still just great. Love Michael Penix. Love Drake May. Obviously, Caleb Williams is the one that we all know about. And I think I nailed them all. Those 5. It's good.
I made a statement about Caleb Williams, and I'm not sure if by the end of the process I'm going to take it back, but I'm not sure he's a quote unquote generational prospect.
Sure. I don't disagree. I think his whole package, what he lacks is what we got from Trevor Lawrence and Andrew Luck, which is it's between the years.
Yeah.
It's the only thing he's missing. I would disagree 100% when it comes to his physical profile, his ability to make any throw, his ability to improvise, and his competency from after the ball is snapped. It definitely is generational. But showing up, delivering, and being a leader, I know those are like stupid. I hate them. They feel almost like astrology type buzzwords to apply to a quarterback prospect. But like, I can see it, and I don't disagree.
Yeah, he's still my number 1 quarterback in the class, but like I don't want to like put too much shade on him. I think he is fantastic, but I think maybe we're just throwing around the word generational like slightly. How can we have so many generational quarterbacks in one generation? Surely the whole point is you have one, right? So I think maybe I just don't like the wording of it, right? So that's a little word on the quarterbacks. And final word, Ronnie, any sleepers you're like, oh, Mags, I never got to talk about this guy. Is there someone that you're just like dying to talk about? I've got sticking with the wide receivers, I can throw maybe 1 or 2 at you as well. I've been quite looking like as well.
Throw them at me. Okay, I'm going to rattle off. I'm going to go visit tight end class for a second.
I'm sure he's declared. I've looked it up, and I'm sure he has declared, but I've not heard this guy's name uttered anywhere, and I'm sort of confused why. Anaya Smith out of Texas A&M, I think, is a really, really good player.
I can't comment on him because I haven't researched him yet, but I do. The guy I trust more with any of this is Jeff DiMatteo. It's NFL_DiMatteo on X. Okay. And he's done over 130 hours of tape study on this class so far, and he keeps bringing up Anaya Smith. Yeah, so I'm with you there. I don't have anything to add.
Yeah, he's a treat to watch. So yeah, look out for Anaya Smith. And you got some tight ends. We kind of hinted at Shatavion Sanders earlier, right? He's just awesome to watch, right?
A fun exercise that I do every year, and I've been doing it for the last 4 or 5 years, has to do with just how much good information there is out there, how many people like you, Mags, and people across the industry that do a lot of research, do a lot of prospect evaluation and studying, that I've found that really for the first 10 or 15 prospects, I don't have to do a lot of homework anymore. By the time draft season comes around, I can rely on my peers. So my focus for the last half decade has been looking at the back of the draft and trying to identify the guys that everyone is overlooking. This is going to sound like absolute dog, you know what? And I'll start with 2022. The last 2 years in 2022, right around March, I kind of go out and declare who my stamps are for the year, and I try to pick a wide receiver, running back, and a tight end.
Yeah.
And in 2022, it was Greg Dolchik, Tyler Algier, and freaking Sky Moore.
Sky, let you
I know, dude. I feel okay. A lot of people also love Sky.
I got so excited. I'm a Kansas City fan. I got so excited when we drafted him as well, and now he's like maybe not even rosterable. It's so sad.
What happened to him? And then last year in March, I put out there Puka Nacua,
nice,
Stephen A-Chain, and Sam Laporta.
Nice, that's a slam dunk, Ronnie.
And I haven't been able to bring it up with too many people because nobody wants to hear it or believe it. It was like an absolute lottery hit. But in March, February last year, Sam Laporta was, for the most part, the 3rd or 4th guy on most people's boards. Devin A-Chain was the 7th or 8th running back on most boards, and Puka Nacua wasn't even a name. And so I'm going to jump 3 months ahead of when I usually put this out. I like to wait till after the Senior Bowl and do all of my homework. But
let's go.
Jatavion Sanders is my dude at tight end. That kid is kind of a Kyle Pitts type prospect. He doesn't have the statistical output, but you alluded to it. Texas spread the ball around. They didn't feature a singular player for the last season and a half. Jatavion Sanders is 6'4", 240. He's faster than Brock Bowers.
Yeah.
He receives the ball better than Brock Bowers. He doesn't do everything else as well as Brock Bowers. That's the only difference between the two. But when you want a guy that shows up and can deliver for fantasy purposes, you kind of almost have immediate gratification. You need a tight end that plays more into a wide receiver role. Dude, Jatavion Sanders is that guy. And I guarantee you, after the combine, his name is going to show up everywhere. Yeah. He's going to have a stellar combine. He's going to get taken in the first 2 rounds, maybe the 3rd. I doubt it. And he's going to be featured year 1. I would not shock me if he outperforms Brock Bowers as a rookie. He's really, really good. And you guys should all put a note somewhere, Jatavion Sanders, and keep an eye on the guy. It's my stamp for tight end this year.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. He is someone that if Brock Bowers wasn't in this class, he would be getting pushed way up, I think, because all eyes are on Brock Bowers. No one's really looking at Sanders, but you should be.
He's special, man. He really is. He's like I said, he's kind of a 90% of the way there for what we wanted Kyle Pitts to be, but I think he might actually be a better overall player than Kyle Pitts.
I absolutely love it. So there's your tight end stamp for the year. Are you revealing anyone else, Ronnie? I gotta ask. Or are we just going with tight end and we're just teasing it?
Dude, I don't know. I've got to. It's gonna be hard for the wide receiver position because this class is so good that the tier break. I usually can say, all right, here's the top 6 guys. Let me go look at the next 10 and 5 one. I don't know. I'm gonna have to go look at the bottom 20.
Yeah, like guys who just coming out of Europe somewhere, right?
Some kid from Youngstown State or something like that. But so no, not ready to make the stamp on anyone else, but I've done enough research on Jatavion Sanders to be pretty confident in that being my guy there.
Absolutely love it. And that brings us to the end of the show, Ronnie. Thank you so much once again for coming on to the hot seat. And can you just remind everybody where can they find you again? What are you up to these days?
So you can find me on Twitter at Ronnie A. Evans, but I think more importantly, it's a smaller account. It's brand new. It's called at Good Guy AI. Also, my website is goodguy.ai, but it's not live yet. And what that will be is a nexus that serves as the hub for everything involving AI advancements, exploration, tools, showcasing people's projects, and providing courses and educational materials for fantasy sports enthusiasts to learn how to integrate AI into their fandom, into their workflows, into their processes, and really make them better. Good Guy AI, that's my big project right now. And then the only other plug, I mentioned him earlier, but Jeff DiMatteo, Gridiron Ratings, I'm still part of the team over there. And right now, he and Kyle Lindemann, Luck is Made, on Twitter are doing, it's called the Green Room, and they're just going through each week and doing about an hour and a half of content on the film study they've done towards this class. It's pretty good stuff. I'll go check them out. That's Gridiron Ratings.
I'm definitely going to check them out personally myself. That sounds absolutely amazing. So hopefully everyone listening will as well. And thank you everybody as well for joining in. If you've not already, you know what everyone on YouTube wants, right? I want you to hit the like button. I want you to hit subscribe. Hey, we got a target for 2024. I want to get all the way up to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. Guys, we're almost halfway there and it's January. So thank you so much if you have subscribed already. And if you've not, hey, get involved. You don't want to be missing out on it, just like you don't want to miss out on Good Guy AI. You want to be ahead of the game. You want to subscribe here. You want to get on Good Guy AI. So finally, one more time, Ronnie, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening. And remember, for anything Dynasty you need to know, keep it locked on the Certified Inferno. And we'll see you next time.